Or subpart V, submission policy provision policy for the rates for the premium of non-insurance for the supplemental payment policies. 407 the basic purpose of the applicable to subpart with the table of the guideline approval of the process with the with the federal corporate insurance corporation application provision policy with the rate for the premium substitute with it submitted with the period with the authorized under the section 508H 8H Act for the also provide with the procedure with the reimbursement of the research of the development of the cost made with the cost of the cross conceptual process with the approved with the 508 submission of the guidelines for the submitting with the contracting policies proposal to stand with approved with the advance of the payments of the provided with this part some part also provide with the guidelines reinforce reference for the procedure for the submitting for the index pay for the weather plan for the insurance for the authorized in section 523(1) Act for the procedure submitting for the reinsurance for the supplemental for the policy according to the standard for the reinsurance agreement and hour with the also contained end with in 407.01 the definition 508 submission policy provisions of the policy with the plan with the insurance with the rate for the premium provided and with the federal crop insurance with the corns with the requirements for the 407.05 with the 508H submission with the reinforcement with the subpart with the design with the contact proposal with the individual basic with the plan insurance with the reinsured with the supplemental policy with the act that submitted with the federal crop insurance with the act with the Title 7 U.S. Stand Code 1501-1524. Actual documents for the information cropped insurance for the year for the available to public inspection for the agency agent's office for the published for the RMA website for the show for the available to the insurance for the policy coverage levels of the information the need for the determined amount for the insurance for the guarantee the price premium the rate for the premium adjusted percentage practice for the particular type of the variety for the insurance cropped for the agricultural for the commodity for the insurance for the acres for the other related information regarding insurance for the county sale or estate. Actual appropriate terms due for the detect of the premium rate for the stuff for the rates expected for the cover the anticipated law for the tables for the reasonable for the reserve base for the valid reasoning examination for the available risk data with the knowledge experience with the expect with the value with the future with the cost associated with the risk to be covered with the express with the combination of data with the include but not limited liability primarily done indeed with the loss ratio based on the actual data of the simulation reflect with the risk of the coverage and policy administrative of the operating subsidiary of the subsidiary administrative of the operating with the expense of the authorized with the act with the federal crop insurance corporation on behalf of the procedure with the approved with the insurance with the provider loss adjustment with the reimbursement paid with the federal crop insurance corporation satisfaction with the protection with the, and eligible crop insurance with the contract consider the A&O subsidy advance payment of the portion of the 50% of the estimated research of the development cost of the may be approved with the board of the under section 522 with the act approved with the concept of the proposal the time of the request is submitted with the body board or maybe dissolve with the discretion provided up to the additional 25% of the advance payment estimate of the research the development costs after the applicant begins with the development activities if the concept of the proposal to provide with the coverage of the region with the crop that are underserved with the include with the specialty crops and with the submitted with the main satisfactory progress stories for the developing the valuable marketable 508 agent 8 submission agent with the individual license with the state of the eligible to crop insurance with the contract control with the servants of the reinsurance with the year with the employee with the under with the contract with improved with the insurance with the provider with the designee with the sale with the seller as the eligible crop insurance contract. Applicant, any person any submitted with the board with approval of the 5088 submission with the 5088 Act for the concept of the proposal of the 522 with the Act with the index base with the weather plan with the insurance with the section with the 523(1) with the Act will include the AIP that has come into with the individual with the development and submission process with the marketing and sale with the service of the policy and plan insurance with the AIP is the approved insurance with the provider or legal and with the include with the company with the enter with the reinsurance with the agreement of the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation for the applicable insurance years. Applicable proceed with the applicable handbook with the manual memorandum both for the other defective of the RMA with or the board of the board of directors Federal Crop Insurance Corporation commodity with the same indeed with the 518 Act complete 508H for the mention of the concept proposal for the index base with the weather plan for the determine the RMA for the board with the containment of the required documentation according to the 407.05 of the sufficient quality complexity with the consideration for the originality of the policy of the material with the underwriting with the actual rating with the methodology with the pricing methodology with the design with the construction all of the other steps with the required with the full development of policy with the plan with the insurance. Contact proposal of the written policy with the proposal of the prospect with the 5088 submission with the submitted with the under section 522 with the act of the advance payment of the reinsert the development of cost containing all the information required with the regulation procedure with the section 17030 of the reserve of the procedure with the submission with the concept of the proposal of the secret advance of the payment of the research for the development of the cost of the which will be found with the RMA website with the RMA with USDA with the government with the justice of the board with the determined with the approved with the development and the viable the market with the policy consistent and board approved with the procedure with the regulation Regulation Section 508H of the Act of the Delivery System components of the policy of the plan. Insurance available on the public sale of the development of the process of the consumption, composed with the documentation, perceived the pricing, the rating, methodology of the administrative, the operating, perceived the system, software, supporting with the material, with the documentation, effort to create with the implement with the 508H submission. Endorsement of the document for the provide for the insurance policy, reinsure for the act for the manner of the change of the existence of the provides additional coverage provided with such policy, the export review over the indicating independent person with the conjunct check with the board or with the criteria of the underwrite of the act rules with the select with the board of the review of the concept of the parole of the 508H submission with the index base with the written weather plan, even with the provider provide with the board regarding with the result of the in their review. The federal crop insurance, the FCI, is wholly owned with the corporation USDA with the whole programs administered with the RMA. Index base weather the playing with the insurance of the risk management product with the identity with the base with the defined with the weather parameter exceed with the fail to meet with the general threshold with the during with the special with the time of the period with the weather index proxy with the measure with the expected loss of the production when with the defined with the weather and parameters does not meet with the threshold life unlimited resource with the provider same with the determined with the USDA with the IR2 with the tool with the EGROV with the USDA with the Gov with the RLP the definition successor website livestock commodity with the same with the term of the 523I with the act with the menu for the purpose of the for the purpose of the continuous report of the provision improvement if the need with the proof of the 508 submission include with the periodic review of the premium and rate of the prices updating modifying with the rating with the price of the methodology up to date with the mind provide with the policy term of the condition the need with the commodity with the U with the under some of the policy term of the condition similar rating with the promise pricing methodology expanding with the policy and with the additional state with the county with the other any of the action necessary to provide adequate reasonable and meaningful full protection of the procedure for the entry of the act cruel sounded for the response of the statutory regulatory chain with the concept of the process of the posting of the 508 for the submission for the conservative the menu for the similar approved of the 508 submission if it is submitted by the same person. Maintenance cost specific expense with the associated with the maintenance approval of the 508H submission with the authorized with the 407-12 maintenance period with the period of time with the beginning with the board with approved with the 508H submission with the end of the day with no more than 4 reinsurance with the years after such approval. Maintenance of the manual federal crop insurance corporation market will determine the base for the detail of the written marketable assessment with the provider in accordance with 40705E with the demonstration for the sufficient number to pursue with the purchase of the product justify the resource of the expense of the required for the other offer of the product with also same in the maintain with the product for the subsequent years. Multiple per crop parallel crop insurance with the MPCI with the policy insure with the reinsure with the federal crop insurance cooperative with the provide with the protection against with the political cause of the loss with the adversely affected the production revenue except for the natural disaster hardly drought with the flood with the National Agricultural Statistics Services its USDA successor agency with the collect with the analyze the data collected with the procedure with the other source. Non-reinsured supplemental policy of the policy endorsement of the risk management tool with the reinsured with the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation of the act of additional coverage of the other than the loss related to hull. Non-significant change of the minor of the change of the policy plan with the insurance of the stuff of the technical of the correction of the denial for the rating of the price of the methodology of the amount of the subside of the amount owed and with the type of the coverage of the Federal Crop Insurance with the kind of risk and reinsure of the risk any of the condition that does not have the effect of the liability with the amount of loss of the pay under the policy revision of the proof of the plan with the requirement of the statutory of the regulatory chain with the include with the category chain with the policy with the involved with the concept of the been previously sent with the expert with the review included in this category. Planning of the insurance of the class of the policy, as you with the revenue with the hour base of the specific type of the coverage of the one more with the agricultural commodity with the policy with the same meaning with the section 1 basic provision. Tell us of the CFR 457 rate of premium of the dollar amount with the insurance of the percentage of the rate with the day dollar with the liability. This renewed with the paper pay anticipated loss with the provide with a reasonable reserve. Reinsurance of the year with the term being July 1st with the ending with the June 30th the following year and with the reference purpose identified with the reference of the year containing June. Related to material with the actual documents for the insurance of the commodity with the underwriting laws for the adjustment with the name with the handbook of the form with the instruction with the other information needed to demonstrate with the policy. Reinsurance of the purpose of the development of the gathering of the information related with the procedure with the insurance of the task for the risk management with the marketability with the policy with the plan with the insurance of the property policy term with the premium and rate with the various election administrative with the operation and implementation policy with the plan with the insurance with the gathering information with determining whether the agency with the expand with the impact policy with the plan insurance with the new area cover the new commodity under the same obtain policy of the term, condition, price, and premium rates does not consider the research development costs, specific expense incurred with a direct related to the research of the development activity 508H submission of the 40712 Risk Management Agency, the USDA, with the authorized administrator of the crop and reinsurer of the behalf of the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation. The portion of the premium the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation has insured with the sales of the closing date dates contained with the special provision the applicant must be filed with the last day of the insured with the main chain with the crop insurance with the coverage of the crop year. Secretary of the United States of the Department of Agriculture, seeking a change of the change of the policy premium with the insurance with making the rating with the price methodology, the amount with the subsidy, the amount with the coverage interest for the pursuit of the federal risk, federal crop insurance with corporation risk and reinsurance risk, and with addition made effective liability amount of loss to be paid with the policy special provision, same and need with determined one special section basic provision, title CFR 457 and 8, special crop of the fruits, vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruit, horticultural nursery crops, social disadvantaged producers, the same meaning of the Section 2501 Food, Agricultural, Conservation, Trade Act of 1990. Standard reinsurance agreement, the reinsurance agreement of the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, prove the insurer the provider under which approve the insurer the provider with the authorized and sale service the eligible crop insurer the contract with the purpose of the subpart with the reference of the SRA with the state and also included with the other reinsurance the agreements with the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, included with the livestock with the price reinstatement, reinsurance agreement submitted with the same meaning with the applicant with the submitted sufficient quality termination of the RMA with the board with the material with the present with the clear with the written plan with the language of the current with the plan writing act with the 210 with the unambiguous support with the detail with the analyst for the data export reviews RMA with the board can understand the comprehend with the make of the calculation draw with the substantial with the conclusion result with the determine with the 508 submission consult proposal with the index with the weather with the plan insurance with the must be standard with the required with the approval of the team talk with the producer for the producers consider the small socially disadvantaged being limited research for the other aspect of the design Federal Crop Insurance Corporation. Review USDA, U.S. Department of Agricultural user fee fees approved with the board with the chart with the approved with the insurance with the provided you with the policy with the plan with the insurance with the period with the maintenance with the expired with the only company expected with the maintenance costs to be incurred by the submitter. Valuable determination board with the concept proposed with the index web with the plan insured with the 508 submission with the development policy plan with the insurance that can be implemented with the delivery system with the actually accrual appropriate rates in accordance with the basic board procedure. Section 40702. 40702 with the conventional validity for the confidential pursuant of the Section 508 for H4A with the Act for the prior with the approval of the rule with the 508H submission submitted to the rule with the under Section 508A of the Act for the concept proposed submitted with the under Section 522 with the Act with the insured with the base with the weather plane with the insured with the submitted with the under Section 523.1 of the Act included the information granted with the 508A submission concept with the proposal with the index both weather plane insured with the consider the confidential with the commercial with the financial information for the purpose of Title 5 U.S. Standard Code 552B4 with will not be relief with the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation for the public unless the applicant authorized any such relief with the written unless the board approved of the 508 submission for the index web of the plan with the insurance with the information provided with the 508 submission for the include with the information concept of the pro with the index web of the plan insurance with the grant rate with approval of the profit of maybe to relief by the public as the applicant will include with the mathematical modeling with the data with the unless with it maintain with the business with the information with the Title 5 U.S. Standard Code 552 with the B4 with the expert with the review with the reasonable the L1s for the 508 H of the submission with the index with the weather plane with the reinsurer with the approval with the name of the expert with the reviewer with the maybe to re-edit K with the prevent undue pressure for the expert reviewers. 5088 submission for the concept of the proposal with the index with the weather plane with the insurer with the approval with the board remain with the confidential commercial with the financial information according to the Title 5 U.S. Standard Code 5528B. 4. No information related with the Section 5088 submission for the concept of the proposal with the index with the base web of the plane with the insurance with the relation with the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation left with the authorized with the writing with the applicant. 5088 submission for the concept of the proposal with the index base with weather plan insurance with the will be kept with the confidential until the approval of the board with the will be given identification of the number of the tracking purpose unless the applicant provides the otherwise 40703 timing and format. 508 submission concept of the proposal with the index base with the weather plane with the insurance with the may only be provided with the Federal Crop Insurance with the corporation during the 5 business days of January, April, July, and October. 5088 submission concept of the process for the index for the base for the weather plane with the insurer that must be with the provide with electronics of the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, Microsoft Office compatible format say with the either address the paragraph D1, D2 with the section with the D2 with the due date with the paragraph A with the section with the electron with the must fail with the contained document with the detailed index with the sequential with the offers for the reference for the location of the required with the information may either contained within the document separate file with the detail with the index from the may be clearly identified with each of the required section with the include with the page number with the information with the contained with the document filing name information contained in a separate file and a 508 submission concept for the proposal for the index base for the plan and trim with the provide with the within 5 business day with the month for stay with the paragraph A with the section will be considered to have with the provide with the next month with the stay with the paragraph A. For example, if the applicant section 508 submission for the January 10th will be considered to have it received in April 1st. 5088 submission concept of the proposal for the index base for the weather plan and trim with the must be provided with the one over the following address for the both for the email with the duty deputy administrator of the product management successor with the duty administrator of the USW RMA USDA with the .gov. By mail or remove of the storage devices such as the compact device or universal service series bus sent with the deputy administrator of the product management any success for the positioning of the USD with the risk management agent 52312 East Bend as driven the road Kansas with the Missouri with the 641313011. These are the requirements of paragraph A, section 508. Submission must be received no later than 248 of the day for the earliest period of the sale of the closing day for the consider the sale of the requested crop year. If you have for the sale of the crop year, it must be at least 67 of the day between the day of the policy with the requirement for the may be available to sale of the earliest sale of the closing day with unless requirement easily waived by the board of nothing would stand with the paragraph B after with the board of the RMA with the authorized with the board and shall determine while when sale at the beginning of the 508 submission with approved with the board or after consideration of the analyzed provided with the AIP the impact of the implementation date of the system. Section 40704 with the coverage and subpart applicant submitted to the board in accordance with 40705 with the 508 submission with the as and with the policy plan with the insurer with the not currently reinsured Federal Crop Insurance Corporation one or more proposed revision policy plan insurer with the authorized in the act release of the premium with the policy plan with the insurer with the authorized with the act applicant may submit with the board with any significant change with the previously approved with the 508 submission including requests for the expansion of the private and making with the accordance with the 50705 applicant may submit the concept proposal with the board with the developing the full 508H submission with the according with the subpart with the procedure with the section 17030 approved with the procedure with the submission with the concept of the proposal seeking advance payment over the research of the development costs which can be found with the RMA USDA.gov the applicant and approved with the insurance with the provider that may submit with the index base weather plane over the insurance with the consideration pilot program in accordance with the subpart with the procedure with the 170501 approved with the procedure with the submission index base with the weather with the plan insurance which cannot be found with RMA with the RMA USDA.gov the applicant must submit with the non-reinsurance the supplement with the endorsement RMA in accordance with the 40703. 40705 of the content of the new chain with the 508 is submission of the concept of the proposal of the index base for the weather minister with the complaint with the 508 submission with the must contain with the following material with the applicant submitted with the accordance with the 40703B with the 508 submission must be valid with the martin control with the product with the project with the intro with the proceed with the actual appropriate with the intro with the program and integrity of the material must contain with you contain adequate information that is required within the section that represents the clear with the board with the RMA with the determine the RMA with the delivery system and the reach with the implement the administrator with the delivery of the 508 submission effectively and efficiently calculation proceed with the methodology that must be consistent throughout the submission with the appropriate command with the risk covered with the first section. It's contained with the general information number 1, 2, 3 with including its the applicant with the name and the address of the primary business located with the phone number, email with the type of the 508 with the and submission a notational word with the 508H with the submission with the approve of the board with the conceptual proposal with the statement of the applicant and the request for the reinsurance with the risk subsidy A and OH for the reimbursement of the research of the development and cost of the applicant with the 508H submission with the previously submitted with the concept of the proposal with the amount of the advance payment that existed with the expected with the research of the development cost of the reimbursement expected with the maintenance cost of the applicable with the proposal with the accrual coastal combined with the cover that include with the type of the variety with the practice with the covered in 508 submission with the crop and trim with the rear with the year with the 508 submission and the proposal available the purchase with the producer with the proposed sale with the closing date with the applicant with the sales window with the early date applicant expect the release of the product with the public with the proposed state with the county with the plan and ensure with the proposed with the offer with the known with the anticipated with the future expansion plans. 9. Identification include with the name of the address, the telephone number, the email, the address of the person reasonable with the addressing question regarding with the writing over the policy underwriting rule of the loss of the adjustment process of the rate of the price of the data process of the record, keeping the requirement of any of the process of the question of the rising, implementing the administration of the date of the approval program and approve of the annual review of the ensure the complying with the requirements of the act with the subpart of the any of the agreement to contain executed between the applicant and the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation. Statement of whether the 508 submission of the book may be filed with the applicable official with the reasonable with the regulating insurance with the shape proposed with the insurance with the coverage within that reason the 508 submission with the bill did not be with the file with the for review. Statement of whether the submitted the ones the 508 submission with the remain with the confidential second section with the must contain with the benefits of the include but as applicable include with the 508 submission with the offer of the coverage or other benefits that are not currently available to execute with the public and private. The program 508 submission meets with the public policy goals, whichever the consistently act and the other policy other law of the policy goals support with the USDA by the federal government, but the detailed description and coverage provided with the 508 submission. It's applicable to all the prices within the targeted producer, with the except for the provided with the section in the third section with the must contain with the policy with the clearly written and then plain language. More of the plain writing in the 210 with the service of the producer, with the understanding the coverage will be offered with the policy language in actuaries to form clear understanding of the payment of contingencies in which will set with the rate of the policy language that does not include and encourage the except for the number to distribute the legal action to be covered with misinterpretations. 5088 submission involved with a new insurance policy plan with the insurance applicable to the policy of the listed with any of the additional coverage elected for the insured with a claim in conjunction with the 5088 submission with the applicable endorsement include with the description of the coverage and how such of the coverage may be obtained. In 508 submission involved with the chain with the previously approved with the policy and plain insurance with the rates of the premium and the proposed the revision with the ratio with each of the chain with the data with the analysis with supporting each of the chains impacts each chain with impact over the chain with the aggregate. Fourth section must contain with the following political impact of the 508 submission with the might have with the following producers proposal over the new plan with the bill not be available to include positive or negative impact with the if applicable the reason 508 submission will not be proposed to the other areas from the commodity with the commodity with the acreage head the board feed except for the amount of the production with the value of the agricultural commodity with the proposed to be covered in proposed county and state. Reasonable estimate with the expected number of the potential of the buyer limited premium that each of the proposed with the county of the state with the total expected liability premium of the crop to give the basis of the detailed assessment of the proceed with the interest of the including description of the number that proceed with involved with the development of the product level of participation and the type of the participation, how many producers that provide with the data for the assist the submitter with the developers and product with the comparison with a similar product, include the difference between 5088 submission and similar product that may be participating with the different. And if available to any of the insurance experience with each of the proposed county with the state within which of the policy the previously offered of the sales of the evaluation policy performance and data available comparison to other similar insurance the policy reinsured acts. The market research study with the market research within systematically gathering interpretation information individual organizational statistical analytic method techniques and applying social scene giant insight with a supporting decision making that may include with the focus of the group result of both a positive and negative reaction to discussion and facilitated among the group of its stakeholders in order to gain insight with the precipitation, opinion with the belief, of the attitude with the core of the product, which may include with the number of focus of the group of the session that they were held with the number of attendees. Each session of the attendee, the affiliation, product agent with the other system, feedback with the attendees regarding less of the coverage of the product and include with the coverage and anticipated risk of the perils encountered with the range of the cost of the producer of the will being paid with the coverage of the producer and specifically looking over the assessment with the coverage can be provided with the price of the procedure with the willing to pay a shortfall with the rapid risk reduction of the product of the may address tolerance risk of the perception of similar policies, similar product policy feature of the products may desire quality issues. Other evidence proposed in 5088 submission with the purpose of the receive with the parity for the LLH of the lending institute with the other institution interested person and include with the corresponding with the perceived even the growing organization of the stakeholder the expected and even the certain of the risk of the management strategy with the desire for the coverage of the payroll with the faith the willingness to provide critical information on the developing product. Assessment of the fact that the good negatively adversely affected the market with the response with the reasonable representative of the cross section of the producer the significant market segment with the be effective with the policy plan with the insurance. 5088, submission policy production special crop of the consolidation report that must be provided with include with the summary of the analyze with the discussion with a group of the representative with the perceived the agricultural commodity with the major from the producer of the area of the commodity with the potential impact with either directly and indirectly expected with the impacted. Proposed 508H with a submission of the general marketing production of the crop of the both of the regional with the national perspective including evidence of 508H submission will create with adversely material distortion. Marketable assessment of the applicant with the AIP to report with the applicant with the at least one of the API with the marketable assessment with the provide with a separate AIP with the it's not part of the applicant with the applicant must provide with the information generating I don't know, name of the person API with the contact with the basis with the refusal to provide with the marketing assessment with the marketable assessment include with the assessment with the producers will be proposed on 508 submission assessment with the AIP with the agency will sell the service of the proposed 508 submission assessment risk associated with the proposed 508 submission is legally effective with the SRA with the system and the estimated computer system impact of the estimated administrative training with the requirement call for the analysis of the complexity of the product where efficiency may be the game of the potential effect of the proposed AIP for the other participating programs. The fifth section must contain the information underwriting the loss of the adjustment with the 508 submission with the proponents with the RMA 14050 with the British Success Agency External Standards Handbook located with the US RMA USDA with the Gov with the Handbook 14,000 Index HTML include with the applicant underwriting guide with the include with the table of contents with the section with the containing the abbreviations, acronym, and the definition of the relevant data include with the applicable sale of the closing, the cancellation, termination, early with the planning of the final planning, the acreage reporting with the premium, the billing, and insurance. Section containing insurance with the contract with the information of the insurance with the requirements of the producer of the election with the crop provisions of the not applicable to the manufacturer with the risk protection specified you with the division of the guidelines considered with the device detail of the rules of the determinant insurance eligibility include all of the producers reporting requirements, all forms and standards needed to inspect with the procedure for the certifications by the detailed instructions for the use of the completion. Step by step with the example of the data for the collection and the calculation needed to estimate the instrument, the guarantee with the premium and per acre with the other in unit with the measure with the include with the worksheet provide with the calculation sufficient detail with the same order present policy with the allowable the verification premium and charge with the coverage with the consistent with the policy provisions. Section containing special coverage information on the replanting tree for the replacement of the rehabilitation prevented planting that is applicable. The section containing with all applicable reference material with the minimum sample the requirement of the row width factors. Any statement that to be included with the actual of the documents that include with the intent with the special provision statements of the main chain with the underlying policy of the terms and conditions of the loss adjustment and the student with the same with the handbook for the policy and plan with the insurance with the include with the table of content with the introduction section containing the abbreviation of the acronyms and the definitions. Section containing insurance with the contract with the information insurable requirement of the crop provision for the not applicable to catastrophic risk production special unit division with that guide for the applicable to notice for the damage loss provision quality adjustment provisions etc. Detailed description of the cost of the loss of the cover the policy plan with the insurance with any of the cause of the loss of the two with the section thoroughly explain the appraisal method if applicable. Illustrated sample of the applicable with the need with the insurance with adjusting loss with regard with the 508 submission with the informative compatible to documents of mental standard with the factor with the FCIFC with the 2404 with the located with the RMA USDA with the Gov with the handbook 24,000 plus detail with the description instruction you with the completion instructions step by step with the example of the calculation you with the free determine identification payment the probable situation of the partial total loss may occur with the loss of the adjustment proceed with the necessary with the establish the amount with the coverage and loss of the section containing the special coverage information replanting the tree with the replacement rehabilitation preventing planting with the applicable with the section containing all applicable reference material with a minimal sample of requirement of the road width etc. Sixth section must contain the information related to the price rates of the premium and include with the applicable detailed description of the premium rating with the methodology proposed with the use of the basis for the selection of the rating methodology. This is assumption with the made with the premium rating with the commodity with the pricing methodology with the basis for these assumption with the detailed description of the price of the rating with the methodology include with the supporting documentation need with the rate of the methodology of mathematical formula equation data source with the determining rate for the price of the detail of the assessment with the data include with available acceptable long reliability percentage of the total commercial production with available data representative of the support with the proposed rate of the rates and price detailed exemption of the how the rate of the account with each of the risk of the cover of the policy detailed explanation how the price is applicable to the policy of the example of both the calculation and price for the calculation. Discussion applicable to the objective of the evaluation accuracy of the data show for the long-term availability of the data, but the data will be obtained with the data show for the confidential priority explaining the cost of obtaining the data. analysis of the result of the simulation of the molding, showing of the performance proposed of the rates for the commodity price for the applicable base and one or more of the following such for the such simulations must all of the year of the experience of the available the applicant must reflect the both partial loss of the total loss for the recalculation of the total premium loss with compared with the similar with the comparability insurance claim of the offered with the authority of the act with modification of the need of the representative of the components of the 508 submission. The simulation of the liability permanent premium indemnity with the loss of the ratio proposed the insurance of the periodic for the base of the probability distribution, you for the developer the rate for the commodity price for the applicable, the include with the incentive of the test for the demonstrate of the price for the real extremity for the impact for the probability the assumption of any other comparable situation simulation provided as a result of the including the both aggregate of the individual performance 508H submission include with the expected liability premium indemnity for the loss ratio of the proposed insurance of the product for the other various scenarios depicting good and poor actual accrual experience. The sub of the section must be with the following statement that certifying with the substantive with the approval of the insurance of the provider that is affiliated with the not solicited with the 508 submission with the until the policy with the material with the reads law released to the public and the RMA with the otherwise successful of the board exemption of the provision of the policy with the not authorized with the act of the identification of the portion of the rate of the premium to do with the provision of the agent for the loss of Jeff of the train or for the plane with the section 508A of the submission proposing only change of the rates of the premium of the existing policy 508 section with the must contain with the segment of the submitted with the 508 so the admission with the proof of the submitted with the RMA with the computer program is needed to ensure the effective of the implementing process of the section must also contain with the description exemption the implementation to demonstrate with the issue with the applicant and consult with the MRA with providing with the 508 submission with the determine whether the 508 submission can be effective with the issue with implemented administratively the current information technology system and then also reporting requirement of terminology the data conform with the USDA standard with the initiatives. The FCIC with the 508 submission for the determined with the information technology system and the capacity with the implemented with the administrative of the 508 submission for the applicable with the must provide with the document detailed applicable computer processing requirement to consist of the RMA shown on the RMA website with the appendix 3 with the M13 with the handbook information the detail with the acceptable with the computer with the processing requirement of manner with the consistent with the U with the RMA with the facility with the acceptance with the producer applicant with the related data any computer system requirement of the code with the software with the consistent with the U with the RMA comply with the team with the step with the appendix with the 3 with the M13 the handbook and any of the accessory document SRA with the other reinsurance age agreement this is for the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation. The requirements of the USDA for the Risk Management Agency 23 through 12 the each of the banners came with Kansas City, Missouri 641313011 RMA website with the 9th section submitted with the separated pages in accordance with the 407 for the applicable board and proceed with the must specify following amounts will be limited to the original estimated of the end of the submission unless the applicant can justify with additional costs. For new product, with the amount received in advance for the payment of the detail of the estimate of the total amount with the reimbursement of the breach of the development cost of the product with the maintenance fee with the estimate of the maintenance cost of the year within 508H submission will be effective. Detailed estimated maintenance cost of the future of the year maintenance fee with the basic with the maintenance cost of the incur with the include with the not limited to the anticipated expansion with an anticipated change with the update with the policy material with the generation premium and rate with the termination price with any other cost of the applicant with the applicant and the request for the reimbursement of the maintenance cost of the expenses. The section with the containment of this executed with the signed with the certified section statement that accordance with the following applicable name with the hereby with the claim with the base of the amount with the set forth in section the statute 407-12 with the correct with the due with the knowing applicant the name of the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation of the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation Insurance Act applicant named name understanding that additional with the criminal fine information and imprisonment with the 508 submission of the false fraudulent statement that claims that must be with the civil administrative section sanctions. Contents required for the concept proposal to proceed with the 17003 with the approve of the submission of the concept of the proposal seeking advisement with the placement of the research, the development cost, and addition of the proposal that must provide with a detailed description and why the concept of the provided insurance is insufficient improve with the form of the incompetent region with the traditional serve of the Federal Crop Insurance Program, then form with the direct with the recognized flaw of the program and the program, the concept of the required with the re-indict with the reservation with the fee, their plan, and trim with the form with the procedure with the handbook 1705 with the approve with the procedure with the suspension, index base with the weather plan with the insurance with the coin for the board, approve with the procedure, approve with the insurance with the provider, submit the index base with the weather plan with the insurance with the provider, must provide with the way where evidence for that have the adequate experience with the writing, administrative with the policy and plans insurance, comparable with the policy, procedure with the plan insurance, and the assistant sufficient assistant the reinsurance with the satisfied with the underwriting of the obligation and approve with the insurance with the provider, sufficient the credit rating with the appropriate credit rating of the Bureau with the applicable authority and approve with each of the state with approve with the insurance with the provider with the intent of the insurance with the product. Part 400, 706.